Greetings everybody, it's me here again to do another video. It's Wednesday the 27th of May 2026. I'm here at the beach again. It's a bit of a overcast afternoon here, almost looking like it wants to rain, but so far the rain has held back. I want to share some ideas with you. You know, I've been a couple weeks ago to Groot Constantia here in Cape Town. There on the mountains, Constantia Mountains. It's approaching the mountains. It's vineyards and so on. Very historical place. And I was taken aback or surprised to see that the slave quarters, the slave monument, the things associated with the history of slavery here in Cape Town have been somewhat being diminished, looking more like a art gallery type of setup. But the slave quarters, what I was aware of, didn't seem to be quite prominent there. It's almost like the same kind of process that's been taking place in the United States of America, where in recent years they are trying to diminish the history of the slaves in that country. I would actually suspect that it's more embarrassment about what was done to slaves in the past, and even in their school system they have actually left out African American history in terms of the slavery and all the other things that they've done. And I think it's more to do with American pride. In other words, children are to be brought up believing only what has been told to them in the selective history that has been shared. And you know, there seems to be it appears to be a similarity in the Republic of South Africa. You know, the United States of America and South Africa have quite a few parallels. You know, there was a form of a civil war that was fought there, and we also had the Anglo-Boer Wars here. The history books will indicate that it was a conflict over the gold mines that were discovered in the Boer republics of Transvaal and Orange Free State. But you know, if you think back of the history, how the Afrikaners left the Cape because of British rule, when the British came here and took over, they don't share the fact that those people were very disgruntled over British rule because of their policies towards the people, the indigenous people, and that's why they trekked away to be away from British rule and went into the hinterland, and later on established the two Boer republics there in what is called the Transvaal and the Orange Free State. But that's just a little bit of history as to why. Now, America had a civil war where people won't say it is so, but basically those states in the South rebelled against the system of the emancipation of the slaves. They wanted to keep slavery because their economies were very largely based on slavery, and they foresaw that they would actually come short in that process. So they wanted to break away. They wanted to secede, and they formed the Confederate States, the Southern States of America. And of course it was against the Constitution of the Union, so hence a war ensued between the Northern States and the Southern States. Southern States, the Confederates, and the Northern States, the Unionists. And South Africa also had some form of conflict of a similar nature. But why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because of coming back to this thing about slavery. There's been embarrassment, and there's been an attempt to diminish the the cruelties and the terror that was meted out onto slaves in both countries, where history is being diminished. You know, in South African schools in the past, the history was mostly about the Boers. 1652, when Jan van Riebeeck came to the Cape to establish the Cape for the company, the Dutch East India Company, etc. And they brought slaves to the Cape, and the people of the Cape, the melanated people, were then used as slaves, similar to the way in America they use slaves to build the economies and the agriculture of those places. Now, so the point is that history is actually, a lot of it is selective. And I would say that people should become angry at how we were taught lies and told lies about our past. You know, 1652, when Jan van Riebeeck came to the Cape, is that what children have to learn about? Surely there was a history before that, where, you know, the indigenous people fought against the rulership of these Europeans coming here. And that part of history has been selectively excluded from the history books and the history lessons in school. So, in a sense, we should be angry. We should have righteous indignation over that situation. So, let's include the Bible in this situation. The Bible talks about slavery also. It talks about a people, the Hebrews, which I've shared in other videos, where the Hebrews were warned by God in the book of Genesis. They had a special covenant with God, and they were warned that if they do not keep to the precepts and the statutes that they had with God, this covenant, that there were certain curses that would come their way. You'll find this information in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and specifically chapter 28, verse 68, where they would be carried away as captives and made slaves in a country of their captors. And this is what happened to these people, because they had rebelled against God and they did break the covenant they had with God, and its history, what actually happened to them. They scattered all across the world, and they suffered greatly according to the description that was given by Moses in the book of Deuteronomy. So, how is that connected to history? The history that I'm talking about? Yes, it is, because the key theme here, or key point, is slavery. Slavery was a terrible system which denigrated people and brought them close to basically being cattle, especially in the countries of the USA. And that's why I want to just leave this point here, that despite all the efforts to undo the past and just remind people about the present and say it doesn't matter what happened in the past, is actually a gross injustice, because people need to know from where they came. The problem with a lot of people, melanated people in the world today, in different places, especially in the USA, and I would say even in South Africa, they don't know their past. They don't know where they came from. They don't know their real names. They lost their languages, etc., because of this form of domination that excluded or wanted to drum out or wipe out knowledge of who they are and what they are. And that does something to the psyche of people, because if people don't know who they are and where they come from and what's their real names, etc., they're always going to have a a feeling of being second-class citizens or third-class citizens, and that is the actual reality of what we've been seeing up to the present day, where people are hurting each other or killing each other in the form of gangsterism and drug abuse, etc., as a result of the fact that they don't really know who they are. They do not have self-pride. They don't have a true knowledge of their forefathers and who they are and where they came from. So all of this is connected to history. Somewhere it says in the Bible, study to make yourself approved. Study to make yourself approved. This study doesn't necessarily mean study only the Bible, study history also and true history. And then there's also the point about my people are destroyed through lack of knowledge, which you find also in one of the minor prophets' books in the Bible. My people are destroyed through lack of knowledge. And isn't that the story today? That a lot of people who are melanated don't have knowledge, but they don't know anything that's necessary for them to know, so they're destroyed. And what I just mentioned now about the drug abuse and the gangsterism and all the ills that happen in the communities is a result of they do not have an identity that they can be proud of, or that they can follow and know who they are. And it's been purposely done that way. The people that ruled them have purposely blocked out and wiped out the memory of their past by all forms and different forms of doing things. I would say in America, even Hollywood was used in the past to influence people's thinking, to bring up a certain images about who they are and what they are, and much of it is been fake and lies. And in similar in other places where people are ruled by the very pale-skinned people. Here in South Africa, if you take Cape Town, for instance, Cape Town has been predominantly people of a melanated skin. We had the Khoi, we had the Hottentot, we had slavery, etc. And the people who are so-called coloreds in the Cape and in South Africa have come out of that background. But before, when they were Khoi and they were Hottentots, that history has been blotted out. It's been forgotten. Even the languages are gone. So there's such a thing called Stockholm Syndrome. The Stockholm Syndrome is that the victim is made to and becomes in love or supports his captor. So a lot of people suffer from this effects of the Stockholm Syndrome as a nation, as a people, because they admire and they support the people who were previously their captors. So I just wanted to leave that thought with you today, and for us to consider, because it's very relevant. We're living through the times where this is all on the cards. The truth is coming out. The truth is coming out. The truth that has been hindered, that has been blocked, that has been withdrawn and selectively kept out is coming out. And it's a wonderful thing in a sense, because of the generations of lies. It's wonderful that the truth's coming out. So with that positive note, I want to leave you with these thoughts and say have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week further.